Hey friends, it's TerabyteTiger. Today we're going to be walking through my latest blog post about how to create a minimal favicon for your website using Gravit completely in the browser. Let's jump in. So from the Gravit page, you will have to sign up for an account. Everything we're doing today is going to be operating within the free tier that Gravit offers. So from the create page, we're going to start with a 32 by 32 pixel canvas. When we hit create, we're going to create this little square in the middle here. And we're going to hold control and then scroll up to zoom in. And as long as you're focused on the canvas here, you'll be able to use control, scroll up and down to zoom in and out, and it won't affect the viewport of your entire browser. Another thing that I just did here was when you middle click on a scroll wheel, you're able to drag the canvas around, which is a very helpful one for when you're working on larger projects. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up here to the top toolbar. We're going to click this drop down next to the shapes icon, and we're going to grab the polygon tool. We're going to drag a polygon onto our canvas, and we're going to hold shift while we're doing this, which will lock it to specific rotation breakpoints. You don't need to do this, you can freely rotate it afterwards, but I like to have a flat bottom on my shapes so that it's a little bit easier to work with, and then when we let go, the shape will be created for us. It's nice, solid gray fill. We're going to align the icon in the center of our canvas. In the top right, we're going to click the align center, and we're going to click the align middle buttons. This will give us a icon squarely centered on our canvas. The next thing I want to do is, I don't like how sharp these corners are on the polygon, so I want to increase that curvature up to about 1, which will give a nice little curve on all the corners. And then you can also adjust the points here, which allows you to control how many corners or points there are on your shape. So I'm going to be leaving it at 6 for now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to be changing our fill from a solid gray into a gradient. So we're going to click the solid gray bubble, change this color fill to a linear gradient, and now we've got two colors, a white and a black, and then the gradient's being calculated in between by Gravit. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here to gradients.terabytetiger.com, and this is a tool I made so that I can pick gradients easily, see what they look like before I drop them into Gravit. It's a little bit frustrating to try to tweak the gradients, especially between vastly different colors in Gravit. So I built this as a way to work around that and make it a little bit easier. If you build websites at all, you can also use the copy CSS button and change the degrees of the rotation. For Gravit's concern, all we care about is the color gradient looks nice and like what the kind of thing we're trying to get with for our favicon. So probably going to go with this blue and maybe a dark purple. So what we're going to need to grab is the hex code here. We're going to Control C, copy that, pop back over to Gravit, and here under the hex we're going to Control V, paste that in, and now when we tab off, we're going to see our blue color show up. Then we're going to head back, grab our purple color, Control C, copy it. So now we need to change the other point's color, not the blue one. Right now, if we enter this here, tab off, it's going to change the blue color to the purple, and then we're still stuck with the black on the other side. So if we undo that, the way that we can control the second point is we can either click the dot here, or we can click the rectangles in the top here to change that. We're going to drop our new hex value in, tab off, and now we see that we have our purple to blue coloring. Before we click out of the gradient though, there's one more useful tool that is included here, which is the ability to change which direction the gradient is heading for our shape. So if we adjust this by dragging these points, and you can drag them wherever you want and see the gradient change in real time. So you can position this on like the different corners, the different points, wherever you see fit. This will let us align the gradient in a way that looks more pleasing to the eye. So we now have our polygon, and when we click it, we can hold shift and drag one of these corners, which will keep the aspect ratio the same. And we can make that a little bit bigger since this is this entire square that shows up in the top here by our icons. So you kind of want to get close to at least filling the space so that especially if you're going to do things with like pictures later on, that will give you the ability to actually see what's in the favicon instead of just being really, really small and not being able to determine what is actually going on there. So we're just going to shift drag this to make it a little bit bigger, fill out the space better. And if you want, you can even go ahead and grab this rotation and spin it around a little bit, give it a little bit more flair. And if you hold shift while you rotate it, it'll lock it again to the certain breakpoints. And that'll help you. That's more beneficial for when you're rotating multiple things so that you can make sure you're rotating everything to the same, with some sort of consistency to your design instead of always being close and then a little bit off, and then it might not look quite right to the viewer's eye. So once we do that, we're going to click the align middle and center buttons again. And now we've got that in the center of the page. So right now, if we would export this, we would end up with our shape, which is good. But we would also have this white background that would always show no matter what theme the user is using. In order to help our shape blend in with the tab coloring, what we can do is we can click off of our shape. Now we've got the page settings on the right hand side here. So for example, if we click to the color bubble here, we can change it to red. And now we see that the whole background of our canvas changes to red. So that's not really what we want either. We want to make sure that we have a transparent background and then the favicon will display on top of whatever the tab coloring is. So to make sure your favicon is going to look good though in these tabs, it's worth checking things like F3, 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 which is I believe the default Chrome tab color, or at least somewhere close to that. And it's also worth checking against some of the dark grays to make sure that when someone's using dark themes, it will also look appropriate there. So once you check that, you'll be able to come down here to the bottom of the two color picker modifier bars and grab this one that's all the way on the right here, and that's going to change your alpha value or the opacity. We're going to drag that all the way down to 0. So once you do that, you should see this checkered background show up. And that's how you know that you're going to be exporting your PNG with a transparent background, and that'll offer the things we just talked about. Now that we've got that, we're ready to export. We're going to come up here to File, go to Export, and you can just click this PNG button and it'll open up and save the icon for you. And just like that, we've got our favicon. So now we've got our 32 by 32 favicon. How do we adjust this down to be a 16 by 16 or other sizes? Since there are multiple different sizes you need, whether your users are on a tablet, a laptop, a large screen, depending on so many settings, you might need different size favicons. So to account for that, there's a list of free favicon sizes, which will be linked down below. And that's a cheat sheet which will list, here are all the common sizes, here's what you need. And the way we're going to adjust to those sizes, so for example, 16 by 16, the first thing we need to do is we need to compare our 16 to our 32. So 16 is half of 32, so we're going to need to remember that 50% sizing, which will come up in a second. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to modify our page to be 16 by 16, which we can just type those in here. That'll adjust the whole canvas down to our 16 by 16. Now we're going to select our shape. We're going to come to this right-hand side, transform. And this is where our 50% is going to come in. We will type in 50% to our scale for our width and our height. And now when we click apply, it's going to automatically scale the whole thing down to be that 50% sizing. So from whatever base sizing you're going to, if that's 100%, you need to know how to adjust larger or smaller accordingly, and that'll scale your shape for you. You don't have to worry so much about the scaling, like blurring or anything. Everything that Gravit's doing here is a vector, so it'll be able to scale in a way that won't cause that distortion at whether you get really small then really big, that kind of thing. So then the last thing we need to do here is we need to just align our shape back to the middle, and then we're free to export it again. Then go File, Export PNG. And just like that, we've got our 16 by 16 and our 32 by 32 favicon. I hope this helped. I know that walking through some of these things can help a lot more if it's visual compared to if it's just written down in like the blog post. If you enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back with some more content soon. Thanks. Bye.